Welcome all podcast listeners, YouTubers, however you listen
Twitter
to,
users.
however you listen to jerks like us talk about sports, jerks, idiots, whatever you want to call it. We're here for something special. We are taking two huge corporations, not really, but we're taking two small little shows and putting them together. We got Yankee Chatter with my friend Greg down here in sunny
Down south.
Orlando.
Yeah, he's down south.
And then the two schmucks that you see every Thursday on the Bigger and Better Sports Show up here in the basement in upstate New York.
Very chilly.
The Big Tuna.
It's very chilly.
So,
They're schmucks.
so I got something special for you today. We're talking about a huge scandal. It's the biggest scandal in baseball since the Black Sox back in, what year was that, Greg?
I think it's like 1919.
Yeah. Was it 1919?
I think so.
Yeah, close.
Well, no, because that
we were
was
within 10 years.
on Boardwalk Empire. He was getting indicted.
That was the 20s, though.
Was it 20s?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Prohibition.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we got.
You think this is the biggest one since the Black Sox? I was thinking Pete Rose.
That
Maybe.
Well,
was one guy.
Yeah, this is a whole organization, possibly multiple organizations involved in some sort of cheating scandal. I mean,
I didn't know.
first it was the Astros, and now lately
If
they're
Heroes
bringing in the
gambled-
Red Sox, and yeah.
Pete Rose gambled on results of games. These guys were like cheating
to win.
during the game to win.
And they won
the
the World Series.
Yep. Both of those teams, the Red Sox and the Astros, they
So
won.
you're putting the Red Sox in there as well?
So as of right now, what the Red Sox have done is like this compared to everything that's coming out about the Astros. The Astros are really taking the cake here and really taking the brunt of all the scorn that's coming along with it. So it's mostly Astros, but they're still. And then the manager of the Red Sox, Alex Cora, who was formerly the bench coach of the Astros in 2017. He's kind of the mastermind behind bringing it to the Red Sox. And so his punishment hasn't come out yet. But I've heard, and I think, Brad, you've heard as well, that it's supposed to be much more harsh than A.J. Hinch, the manager of the Astros.
Astros and the GM, John
Lundhow?
Lundhow?
I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
It's like Lundau or something like that.
They got a
Yeah,
1 year.
something like that.
Yeah, no, I did know that.
Now they probably won't get hired ever again, but they got a 1 year ban. I'm hearing rumors that Cora might get a lifetime ban because Cora is the one who helped put it all together for Houston, won a World Series, then brought that to the Red Sox, won a World Series. So he's kind of like the snake underneath everything,
It's just like, honestly, who was like the whistleblower on it? Did the MLB find out about it, or was it just someone said, "Hey, by the way, look at the I don't know who was the whistleblower."
So,
like, it'd be funny if it was like a Yankee.
But it was an ex-Astro.
Yeah.
It is an ex-Astro. So I guess there were a number of people complaining about this to the MLB. Teams were complaining, and they supposedly investigated, and nothing came up from it. But Mike Fiers, who was on the 2017 Astros, he was a pitcher. Actually, if you familiar with baseball, he's also the pitcher that hit Giancarlo Stanton in the face.
Oh,
his
yeah.
jaw. That guy. So he
then
then
again plays with the Astros. So.
yeah. So then he left the Astros and he signed with the A's. And at the end of this season, Ken Rosenthal released an article which Mike Fiers gave testimony to all of this cheating, saying that they were the ones that were banging on a trash can during the game to relay certain pitches. So the batter that was at the plate, if you heard a bang, it was a off-speed pitch.
Off-speed pitch.
And if you didn't hear anything, it was a fastball. So they were up there and they knew what was coming before the pitch came in.
And you have to keep in mind the A's at this time were battling the Astros for the division. So he had a lot of I don't know what you call it, but he had a lot of reasoning to come out with this.
I mean, I just don't. The thing is that I get it that people find ways and stuff like that. You always have to have an edge in the game. But I'm wondering, like, I understand that people were, like, saying they were doing it, but it's just weird that the MLB was like, no, we looked into it. only because the YouTube videos that they show, it's like clear as day. Like,
yeah.
you know
Well,
what I'm saying?
if you're just casually watching the game, you might hear it and you might think, oh, some crazy fan, because you listen or you watch when the Yankees go play the A's, they're always banging on a drum the entire game. So like you might think of that, like, oh, there's a fan out there. Cleveland does it too, and
Yeah.
but now that you're looking for it, it's like, well, how do you miss that?
It's just I don't know. I just and the worst thing is that and Houston isn't that big of a market team. So it seemed to me, they might be now that they're good.
No, you're right.
But like to me, it's like if it was the Yankees or the Red Sox, it'd be a lot bigger. Like if the Red Sox started it all, this would be just like, you know what I'm saying.
I mean,
but
it's getting there.
It's getting there because of the Red Sox. But it was the Astros. People are like, well, they're just gonna suck. That's all. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's where I've always wondered the punishment with the team. Like if it's like in football stands, if it's the Patriots, they're going to get a little bit more than most because they're repeat offenders. So I didn't know with it being Houston, is it that big of a deal? But they won. That's the problem.
Well, that's I think why it became such a big deal, because so back in 2017, both the Yankees and the Red Sox were caught using the Yankees were caught using the dugout phone, right? Was it the dugout phone, Brad? That
they call like Apple, either a phone or a.
Yeah, so the Yankees were caught using a bullpen phone incorrectly, and then the Red Sox did the Apple Watch.
Okay. Yeah.
Someone was using an Apple Watch to relay text message the signs from the live feed somewhere. So they were caught.
It wasn't as big a deal then.
No, and they were caught, and they were both fined undisclosed amounts, and that was supposedly the end of it. But I guess at the same time, the Astros were doing this trash can thing in the same year, and I mean, I guess
because Carlos Beltran, the core people that said, "Listen, we're doing this with the watch, our watches and our phones. Why don't we just put a TV right next to the dugout, and then we can bang on something and we can just do it all instantly." That's what took it to the next level. That's why Beltran also lost his job today.
Sit down,
yeah.
I didn't think you could be a manager right after. Well, I don't.
Now you can.
Now you can.
So the whole gray area in this was at the time Beltran was a player. So if you've been paying attention, you'll notice that throughout all this, no player has been suspended or fined that we know of being fined. Yeah. And they were saying, I was reading somewhere, and I can't remember the source, but they were saying that they were given immunity to kind of, blow the whistle on both of these organizations.
Something that a district attorney would do with a criminal, will reduce your sentence.
Right.
In this case, immunity if you give up.
We call them
the bigger fish.
We call them narcs or rats.
Those are the people Tino. Those are the legs that Tino breaks.
That's what I'm saying.
See, there you go. So you're quite familiar with this.
But I would love to see if it is bigger than just the Astros.
I'm sure.
Well,
I'm sure it is, but
Red Sox now.
Right, and that's why they haven't released anything about what's going on with Cora. Now, the Red Sox preemptively agreed to part ways with him, although we all know that they fired him. And the same thing with Beltran, and that's why Beltran was fired, because if you think about it, he was a player at the time, but now he's a manager, and he was the only player that they named in all this. So the Mets were kind of in a tough position. Do you keep this guy, but he's a traveling circus all year? Or do you let him go because he was involved and because the Mets are the Mets, so they're going to do something stupid this year regardless. Of course, you really need that following you around? At least get that distraction out of the way.
From what I heard on ESPN or what I read is that Beltran was really trying to stay. Just like he was like somewhat begging them. Like don't, you know what I'm saying? To me, it's like, I get it, but it's like, dude, you gotta serve the time.
You gotta just admit it.
You just admit it. You cheat. Because the thing is that people hate that when you say, like, I never, like, just like Bill Clinton, like, dude, you banged her, no big deal. Just tell the truth.
The steroid users that admitted it are already forgiven.
Mark,
Andy Pettit.
Andy Pettit.
Even A-Rod finally admitted it, and now he's like, A-Rod's like the face of baseball now for ESPN.
But and who does everybody hate? Barry Bonds, because he hasn't admitted it yet.
And,
you know?
and Roger Clemens.
That too, yeah.
Mark McGuire, Rafael
McGuire. Yep.
Tino did it, and they won't admit it. Yeah.
No, I thought that McGuire came clean.
No.
I don't think he did.
No.
Canseco did. But Canseco's a nut job.
Palmeiro did.
However, McGuire is a batting coach now.
That's why I was wondering, because he's a coach
Yeah,
now.
I forgot where he is now. Is he with Miami?
The thing is that you always get a second chance. Like, it's like, just admit it.
Well, that's the country, you know?
But get started on getting back to where, you'll never be where you were, but you just have to understand that. It was. Oh, you gotta understand that, like, just admit it. That's what people want. Just admit it, bro. Like, it'll be a lot quicker and a lot less painful. Just tell us the truth.
And the crazy
Admit
thing
it, take your lumps and move on.
That's what it is. Yeah, I don't get it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
why
cut
these
you off,
people
Brett.
have to lie.
The crazy thing is, not even what, Greg, 5-6 months ago, we were already talking about how we wish Beltran would either be the next manager or the bench coach or hitting coach for the Yankees. Like, we wanted Beltran.
Uh-huh. Well, because he had this great reputation, right? I mean, everybody looked at him as this great baseball guy with knowledge and the ability to handle young players and this potential. And now he's disgraced. He won't admit it. He took a job managing the Mets, which probably hurt his reputation as well. Just kidding. And now this whole thing. So it's not, and it's going to take him a lot of effort because he hasn't admitted to gain the trust of everybody back. It's not. So speaking of Beltran, one of the big things that has come out today in particular. Now it was mentioned back when all this came out and everybody was like, "Oh, that's stupid. That couldn't possibly be a thing." But and I sent you a screenshot of it today.
Yes.
Someone on Twitter, and this is what's that?
I don't think it's true, but go ahead.
It's interesting because it's what everybody's talking. Michael Kay brought it up on his show today, and I mean it's kind of taken over this whole scandal. Someone on Twitter claiming to be Beltran's niece released a tweet today, pretty much damning the Astros, saying they were wearing vibrating buzzers on their, I think it was their right shoulders, during the 2019. She didn't say specifically 2019, but she mentioned the home run that was hit off Chapman, and that was what he did to win the ALCS against the Yankees.
Well, everyone thinks that's why he was smiling now after the loss, because he knew something was up.
Because he figured he knew that pitch was coming. And so now there's video circulating with Altuve rounding the bases, and he's rounding third, and he's holding his jersey like this, and he's yelling at him. And I'm not very good at reading lips, but
you can read the lips.
You can pretty much see him say, "Don't rip off my shirt. Don't rip off my shirt."
Rip my jersey
and
off.
He's holding his shirt like this because apparently when you hit a walk-off, I guess the Astros and some other teams around baseball, they were ripping each other's shirts off as like a way to celebrate.
Yeah.
So he's clutching his shirt, touches home plate, and then you know how at the end of every series they give out T-shirts saying AL champions, whatever, and most players put it on right there. Doesn't matter, they don't care. Altuve's seen sneaking off the field to changes his shirt, comes back out with the T-shirt on. Then afterwards, Ken Rosenthal actually interviews Altuve and asks him, why were you screaming to your teammates, "Don't rip my shirt off"? And Altuve's response is kind of weak. I mean, he says, "I'm shy. I don't know. I'm shy." And then he goes, "Last time I did it, my wife didn't like that or didn't appreciate it." And he does this fake laugh, and that's it. That's the end of it. No one thinks twice about it. And now here all this cheating stuff comes out, and it really makes you wonder, well, was he just making that up? Because then all these other pictures came out of him celebrating without a shirt on. So it's like, is he really shy, or is he just saying that because he was covering up a buzzer? Or
nothing about him screams I'm shy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
About any of those Astros guys.
Altuve is like a dick. That's the only thing I remember. That's the one thing I remember is that no one likes Altuve. And I was sitting in a bar when he hit that home run. I didn't see when he went by in the third base, but
I didn't know it was back then either.
But that would be like, what do you do there? Honestly and truly,
if that is true, if everything if all that speculation turns out that he was covering up a buzzer to steal signs, I gotta say that's a lifetime ban.
Yeah,
it has to be.
Yeah.
But
has
for
to
who?
be,
For him, or who was buzzing him, or for all the players? Like where do you draw the line?
Well, right now the only evidence, and if you're considering this evidence of anyone having a buzzer on, it's him. And she also, in that tweet, pointed out Bregman. Now, there's no video evidence or suspicious video that shows him doing that. But Altuve, if this is a possibility, and if he comes clean, which he probably won't, he won't. But if there's more people coming forward saying, the guys on this team were wearing buzzers, it's common knowledge around the clubhouse that this was the case, then I think the players that specifically wore them have, and in this case, Altuve has to be banned for life. Has to. He's refuted it. He lied about it. There's got to be a line, and he's like leapt over the line in this case.
Now, is he the MVP this year?
No, he wasn't.
Judge.
2017 he was.
So, in 2017.
So Judge got kind of screwed out of it then. Yeah, like if you watch Friends, Joey Tribbiani, he goes, pass the line. You're so far away from the line, you can't even see the line. Line's a dot to you.
Yeah, so the line is a dot to you.
Line is a dot to you. That is what you're trying to say.
Was that the box? That was the box episode, right?
Now, I will say, watching his at bat, just to play devil's advocate, I want to believe he's wearing a buzzer because I hate it.
Everyone hates him.
But to play devil's advocate, I was watching at bat, same as you. Chapman could not locate his fastball for anything. The only strike he was throwing was with a slider. It was 3 balls. I knew a slider was coming. You got to assume Altuve knew a slider was coming. So you got that.
I mean, 3 balls. I'm not thinking 3 balls. I'm not thinking he's throwing a slider regardless. 3 balls. That's a fastball count.
Slider's the only pitch he was throwing for
a
strike.
I unfortunately did not watch the game. I was in London when this was happening, so I woke up to all this. So I don't know the pitch sequence. I don't know what's happened. But typically, a 3-ball count like that, especially to a batter like that, is a fastball count. Now, if you look at pictures of Altuve in the batter's box, he's up at the front of the box, which tells me that he either is expecting him to throw a slider because he knows he's not locating his fastball, or he knew it was coming because someone was telling him it was coming. Because Chapman throws 100 plus.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm guessing, I'm not standing in the front of the box, even if I know he can throw, even if I know he's not locating his fastball. But that's me, and I'm not a baseball player.
The one tweet you sent me that we think it's fake, but you don't know about, Watch Glaber. Remember that tweet you sent me? It's funny because remember we were having this discussion last year. I go, Greg, I don't know why some pitches he has a high leg kick and some pitches he has no leg kick, and it really didn't matter what the count was. Remember we were talking about that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what worries me. That's what really worries me.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Gleyber Torres?
The one tweet that sent me, they said watch Glaber's leg. The Yankees have a guy in the bullpen also relating.
Oh, shit.
And me and Greg had this conversation in the middle of last year. I go, Greg, because I was looking at how to improve my batting stance in softball. I go, Greg, I'm watching Glaber's stance. I know, it didn't work. But I'm watching Glaber's stance, and some home runs. At one point, he had 3 home runs one night. And in
against the Orioles.
In 2 of those home runs, he had a really high leg kick.
His chin, he was hitting his chin with his knee.
And another home run, it was no leg kick at all. And I go, Greg, it wasn't like the first pitch, it wasn't the third pitch. They were all at random times in the at-bat.
So, because we didn't know the counts at the time, so we were thinking, oh well, maybe he's not doing the high leg kick with 2 strikes. Yeah. But I think one of them he did the high leg kick with 2 strikes, and the one that he didn't was like 1 strike or something like that. I don't remember. But the counts were different, and it wasn't what we thought. So it would be interesting. Now, as a Yankee fan, I really hope that's not true, and I hope they're grasping at straws.
From an outsider looking in, you guys are big Yankees fans. I just whatever. But how would you feel if that was true?
That's devastating. Glaber's the next face of the Yankees.
But what I'm saying is that if Glaber, no, I'm saying if they're saying Glaber, there's got to be more. And that's the problem too with the Red Sox is like if they find out, and even Houston, if they find out all these guys, they're going to put 40, 50 guys on lifetime bans, that means both organizations would have to start from zero. Because if you're going to do it to the players, you got to do it to the bench coach. If you do it to the bench coach, you got to do it to the GM. They can't play stupid. And that's the thing that I think would be crazy. Imagine if in a couple months span, they banned 60 guys from the game. That would be, like you're saying, the biggest scandal since the World Series thing. Dude, the thing is, it might actually happen. Because no one's going to believe that Altuve is the only one.
No.
You know,
and the big thing, the other thing that happened today is, I don't know if you're familiar with how arbitration works in the MLB, but George Springer settled for arbitration today with the Astros for $21 million for 1 year. Now, if he's part of this cheating scandal, that just doesn't sit well with me, because he cheated. He knows he cheated. The team knows he cheated. His cheating and his antics got his manager and their general manager fired. Now here he is collecting a big payday because of it.
Now, do you think he's still a good player? So going into this,
I'm sure all these guys are good players.
That's the thing. This coming season, I mean,
they might have to frisk you.
There's so much pressure on these Astro players now, because if they go into any kind of slump, they don't look too good. I wouldn't want to go into a season with that kind of pressure on me.
Yeah, I never even thought of that.
So now that this whole thing's even come out, you know what it's going to be like whenever they go to a visiting ballpark. I mean,
oh God,
remember A-Rod? Every place he went when he first came back from serving it's going to be that, if not worse, because every player is going to get booed. It's going to be boos the whole time they're up. It's going to be relentless. So that could be a punishment in itself. And the other thing is I think Manfred is limiting it to the Astros and possibly the Red Sox, because imagine if it comes out that 15, 20 Major League Baseball teams are using technology to cheat. That is a terrible look for Major League Baseball. Terrible look for them. And you can't punish an entire league. I mean, that's asinine. So that's why.
There's no
way.
One time? There's no way. It's just
you have to believe it's more than two teams that are doing this.
They're not easily. And I'm sure the Yankees have probably done. I'm sure all these, and I wonder if these certain players that are reacting the way they are either doing it because they're genuinely pissed off, or they're doing it because if I react this way, maybe they won't think that I did it.
Yeah.
You don't know. I don't know what the truth is anymore. I honestly don't.
Well, the thing
it's like politics. I don't know which side's telling the truth anymore. I mean, you hear so much from either side, and it's like, well, which one are you being honest? You don't know.
Rely on investigators. We don't know if even they're telling you the truth.
Yeah, you don't know if they're being paid off to reveal certain information. You don't know how much Manfred knows and how much he's just letting out so that he saves his ass and saves the face of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be the commissioner that allowed all these teams to cheat. How bad does that make him look?
This makes steroids look like nothing, like child's play. This makes steroids look like a blip in the screen. And we're still having debates whether steroid users should get in the Hall of Fame or not. Now we got this going on.
Put this on top of it.
So much higher.
And Manfred's only been commissioner for a couple of years.
I was about to say, he's new, right?
Poor guy. I actually like Manfred. A lot of people like Manfred. I like him.
Well,
I do and I don't, but that's a different conversation.
So as a position player, third base, whatever, first base, okay, they cheat. But what about the pitchers? How do you think the pitchers feel? Where these guys are, because you can't tell me that Verlander or all those guys didn't know that shit was going on. And even for the Red Sox, I mean, it's just to me, if I was a pitcher, I'd be so pissed at the team.
Well, you have to figure that these guys on some level knew something was going on. I mean, being in a locker room, you guys have been in a locker room for hockey. I mean, you know what's going on. You hear people talk. You may not talk directly with someone, but you definitely overhear stuff. And
you gotta see when you walk into the field.
Yep. And the other thing, I mean, you got to hear the trash can. If I'm the manager and I hear the banging, I mean, everything annoys the crap out of me. So I'm wondering where that, hey, stop banging, shut up, stop doing that.
And
But no,
Verlander,
he
Verlander
was
somehow
so
he's
open.
always been so against steroid users, and
That's
Did you
what I'm saying.
see Mad Dog's Mad Dog Russo? His
I didn't
rant.
see, I love
He
the
went
guy.
he went off on Verlander because he's like, he's been so big against cheating and
Yeah.
turning these guys in. Where is he now? How come he's not speaking up? Where's his rant?
And he brought up, Chris Russo brought up that he goes, Brian McCann took 18 whatever it was $1 million from the Yankees to play for the Yankees. Then he goes to the Astros and he's involved in the cheating. He has some big hits against them. Where's Brian McCann? Why is he not coming out now saying something? It's silence.
That's because
everyone from the Astros, but the Astros probably got out ahead of this when this whole thing broke. They probably told, don't say a word.
Yeah, no tweets, no nothing.
Because some of these guys, they go off and they talk, they run their mouths, and I mean Stroman's a good example of that. He just runs his mouth, and Trevor Bauer's another one. And you don't know what they're going to say. They could hold it against you. So they probably got out ahead of this. And it was probably for good reason, because some of these guys probably would have slipped up. There's many of these guys that are involved in this that are probably aware of it, that one of them is bound to say something. That's why it worries me, because Cameron Maybin, who was a Yankee last year, was on the 2017 Astros, and he hasn't said a word. The only former Astro that was on that team that year that has said anything is Mike Fiers, because he's the one that broke it all.
Yeah.
So.
Well, now they take the manager out, they take the general manager out. Like, do you think the owner should get some sort of punishment? I mean, maybe he was not into it, but I mean,
well, technically he did. The organization was fined $5 million.
But what I'm saying is
for
that
them is some change.
You can't really suspend an owner, but they did it to the Carolina Panthers guy for.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's like
you beat me to it.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing to me is that who's besides the guy who broke the story, like who is going to be the next? Because their agents are saying don't say a word. Because sooner or later somebody's going to lose it. Because it's just human nature to get hammered with this stuff, and they're probably like, you know what? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I would like to see if it's somebody that was an Astro or a Red Sox this year playing on a different team coming out and saying something. That's where I can see it.
If you noticed on social media today, after this buzzer thing came out, there were a number of other players, like Cody Bellinger was one. I had a whole list of them. There's probably like 10 or 12 that I had seen of current players that were sounding off about this, not Astro players, but opponents. And they're like, this is ridiculous if it's true. I can't believe Major League Baseball. And they're like, well, now if this is the case, you have to reopen the investigation into the Astros. You have to start holding the players accountable, because right now there's no one's been suspended, because you can't prove who was using the trash can thing. But if there were players that were wearing this buzzer on their person, you have to look into it. And I think if enough current and former players make enough noise, then MLB has to reopen the investigation. You can't let this go. You just can't. It's so bad. It's so big that you can't ignore it.
But that's the thing where it gets to be like the commissioner and stuff. Like, where do you stop? Like, all of a sudden they say, well, there's like 3 or 4 Yankees that did it too, and he's like, even though as much as that sounds bad, it's like, but it's the Yankees. I almost guarantee you that he's sick over it being the Red Sox, because the Red Sox are so popular.
They're a big.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. They're a money maker for the company, for the MLB.
So it's interesting. It's interesting because I know I'm not a fan of one of the teams that is under the microscope right now, but a lot of these fans of the Astros and the Red Sox are trying to throw the Yankees under the bus. And I think if being a Yankee fan and being as big of a Yankee fan that I am, if it came out tomorrow that there was some truth to this Gleyber Torres rumor, I'd be embarrassed. I wouldn't be one of these fans on social media saying, well, that can't be true. That can't be true.
Yeah.
The other teams did it, so it's okay that the Yankees did it. I'd be embarrassed. I'd still be a Yankee fan because I've always been a Yankee fan, and that's just part of who I am. And at this point in my life, if I change fans of being a certain team, it's what's that?
I would say at the end of the day, I mean, cheating isn't like someone got raped or anything. It's like, it sucks. You're embarrassed, but of course you're going to still cheer.
It's a game. Yeah, it's a game.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, it sucks that they cheated, and it's terrible. It's a terrible look for the organization and for Major League Baseball. But I'm not going to stop being a fan.
Well,
but they need to. They need to take their punishment and move on.
But
the only way you're going to get past it.
I don't know who else is it. Is it Buster Only? Is that his name? The baseball guy, Buster Only. He was saying that it's just an advanced way of stealing signs back in the 70s and 80s, and I was like, oh, they stole signs back in the 70s. Like that's stuff.
But it's
sign stealing is part of the game.
He's just a guy on second base trying to steal.
But you can't
or like
for a trash
if a pitcher for when he throws a fastball flaps his glove and then he doesn't do it for a curveball. That's on the field. You're picking it up in real time. You're there. That's different. That's the pitcher's fault for not hiding his signs well. But if you're using a camera and someone that's off the field is relaying signs to someone that's on the field, that's too far. That's the line. That's past the line.
Imagine if it was like a guy on second base, a runner, and he's buzzing him, the batter, be like, well, they're on the playing field. It's like, oh, come on. You know what I'm saying?
But you're still using technology.
But it's just hilarious. That would be something so sophisticated, and it's like, because to me, the trash can thing, it's like, that just seems so simple to figure out.
Yeah.
And it's like, in the buzzer thing, and the trouble is that, like, when I worked in horse racing, we used to use buzzers too. But that was, to get the horses going and stuff. But if he's got that on his chest, they must have it so it doesn't make noise. Because those things make noise. You know what I'm saying? You can almost hear it. You almost have to, like, duck it like crazy.
Like
maybe
like
that's why he was holding the shirt. Because he just didn't want everyone to hear it.
Think about it, though. My Apple Watch vibrates when I get a text message. Have you heard a thing?
No, that's
and I'm sitting right next to it.
That's the thing. Well, no, in horse racing, the most get caught is because of the noise.
I mute mine because every time it buzzes, it drives me crazy.
But that's the thing.
This is what I brought up. To put it into all this opportunity to cheat, I brought up the idea to these guys, and we never really went with it. But why don't we start implementing more technology in baseball and make it more like football? Why don't the pitcher and the catcher have an earpiece, and you have the pitching coach or coordinator call pitching?
Yeah.
So after the catcher throws the ball back to the pitcher, you get 5 seconds to call a pitch in. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the coach telling the pitcher that the runner is taking a big lead or the throw or anything. It cuts out their 5 seconds. Well, people know the signs, and the only time the catcher needs to put down a sign is if for some reason they need to change the pitch.
Call an audible.
Exactly. So why don't we go there? Then there's no signs to steal.
I don't think baseball, the older generation, they want to change it to that because yes, the technology. I'll always remember the Angel Hernandez where he got caught like 4 times when he was with the Yankees. That game where he kept screwing up first base, where they did the review like 4 times on the same base. Well, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a good thing to have because 10 years ago, that was it. It would have sucked that, and that's why I think that they should make improvements for baseball in that way. They're already doing the analytics. Why not put a little bit of something out there to make it even more challenging? Because that makes it a little bit more challenging to get it. You know what I'm saying?
So I have a metaphor for you, or a story, a good way to kind of relate to this. So I'm in the architectural field. That's what my career is, and it's a very technological industry. And if you're not changing with the times, if you're not updating the software, if you're not doing the new technology, then your business is probably not going to stick around for very long. So you have to stay with the times. That's how sports should be. That's how baseball needs to be. But you have too many of these writers that are in their 70s and 80s that are so adamant to stick to tradition and unwritten rules, which are garbage, by the way. And enough with the unwritten rules. Just put it down on paper. Say what you can and can't do. I'm tired of this this well, so and so says thinks it should be part of the unwritten rules. Well, so and so, the other person doesn't believe in these unwritten rules. Who cares? Just make it a rule or don't make it a rule. And if you're so stuck in the past, then your game's never going to evolve. You're never going to move forward. The players are never going to grow. The fan base is never going to grow because these young kids who have the attention span of a mosquito, they're not going to want to watch a 2.5, 3 hour baseball game because there's so many unwritten rules. There's so many, or the casual fan like you, Tino, you probably don't want to watch a baseball game because there's so much going on that you don't get it because you don't watch the game regularly. So if there were more advances in technology, if there's more things that would catch the attention of the casual fan, catch the attention of these younger fans, then the game will grow. So you can't stay stuck in the past.
My idea also helps the pace of play issue that the sport has.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah.
Which Manfred is so he's so desperate to fix that. Now, being a diehard fan, I don't care for pace of play. I love the long games. I wouldn't mind if they played all day. But you're trying to expand to you're trying to expand your fan base. You're trying to grow the game. You need to accommodate to the casual fan. And there are fans that only watch during the playoffs, and you want people to watch throughout the year.
Yeah,
that's why attendance is down.
Well, no, but like the movie 61, where they had those guys that like follow them around, the news guys and all that. Like that's the generation that I think needs to kind of go away because there's probably still guys that follow them around, and
they still have beat writers. Yeah. There are people that do that, but
I don't know the movie, but the one where what the hell is his name? Well, whatever, he's a scout.
I don't know the movie.
No, the old guy when he's a scout with
Justin Timberlake is in it.
Every scout was old. Yes, Justin Timberlake.
Trouble with the Curve.
Yeah, something like that. But he was getting too old in his, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, as much as we respect the older generation, like, there's got to be some movement in the technology age of it, just because
you need to appreciate what was there, but you need to also be open to growing and moving on.
If you look at football back in the 60s, like, you could pretty much kill someone and they wouldn't call penalty. Now it's different, but it's
now you breathe on someone wrong and there's a flag.
Exactly, and that's the thing is, like, you almost have to have all those unwritten rules, like you're saying. You know, and it's even like with, you know, when they hit a home run and you beat the other guy, that's part of baseball. I think it's hilarious. You know what I'm saying? Or there's a rivalry and you just, you know what I mean? But I also think that with if they change the technology, they need to change the umpires because a lot of those guys are getting up in age and it's like, guys, because I don't know if Joe West still umps, but he shouldn't. You know, I don't think he does. No, that's what I'm saying. Like Angelo Hernandez, just I don't know if he doesn't care or he's blind. Just I watched a couple of YouTube videos, kind of get myself into it, and I watched one about Joe West and Angelo Hernandez, how bad they are, and it's just like, man, oh man, they need to get those guys out of it to where I think that's where it should start. Like
Joe West should stick to country singing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's just, you know, they get to a certain age, it's like you're done. If there's nothing against it, it's just that's the rules. You know.
Well, so the NFL has had instant replay for a very long, much longer than Major League Baseball has. And if you have the technology to get the play right, to get the calls right, when one little call can easily change the momentum of a game, and you're not taking advantage of that, what's the point? I get that everybody loves the human element of the game. I know, Brad, we've had conversations about this when instant replay first came out, and I think it's been around long enough, and the technology has gotten so good over the last couple of years that I'm almost on the fence of ever having human error ever again. I want the calls right. I mean, if you can sit on your couch and you can blatantly see because the TV has a box on the screen showing you where the strike zone is, and call after call is just off the plate, but they're calling it a strike, or it's in the box and they're calling it a ball. It's like that drives you crazy after a while. So either turn the box off yeah, turn the box off and let the umps do their job, or because the networks are showing this new technology, take it in and use it and get the calls right.
That's why I don't like the channels that have the box right now, because it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing.
Mm-hmm. You're showing me a representation of the strike zone, and it's just making me mad because the umps aren't getting the calls right.
These pretzels are making me thirsty.
No, but it's almost like for the NFL, like we've always talked about, like sooner or later they're just gonna have the refs out there just to put the ball down, and just they'll call the penalties up in the booth. And it's like, would they ever do that with baseball? I personally hope not, where the ump just has to stand there and like they announce, oh, it's a strike. You know what I'm saying? Because the box.
That's what they're talking about doing.
Yeah,
I think they're testing that out in the minor leagues this year.
They are.
Crazy, isn't that? And to me, it's I mean, who cares? You get paid a good amount as an umpire. I just laugh. It's like, dude, you're literally just sitting there, ball. You know, like, you know what I'm saying?
But that's where we are now. If the umps were making the right calls more than not, or because the technology is so good that you can visually see them making the right calls more often, then this would be a non-issue. But because it's so blatant that they're making the wrong calls on the field, that they're making the wrong calls as a home plate umpire, that's where everybody gets frustrated. And because half the time there's that one controversial play that changes the momentum of a game, keeps one team that probably should have won from winning. You know, we've all played sports. How many times have you been on the field? And this goes back to our Lyles Hoagies softball days. How many times have we been on the field and we were winning, or vice versa, and one umpire made the wrong call, and it totally reversed the momentum, and we ended up losing the game, or we ended up benefiting from it. It's real. It happens in every sport and every level of any recreational, professional sport. It happens.
It's just the problem. I think the problem is there's too much technology. You know what I'm saying? Is that if you're gonna have it there, like you either go the whole way or you take it back a little bit. You can't have it halfway through. Mm-hmm. And it's just like in football. Like as soon as you review a judgment call, the game's over with when it comes to officials, because pass interference is a judgment call, not a rule. Well, it's a judgment call. Now that you're reviewing that, then you would have to review every play.
The technology is too far. So, like in football, technology, replay was never meant to show if the ball moves a little bit when a receiver falls to the ground, because that's natural. The ball is gonna move when you fall to the ground. But because replay, people see that and like, that's not a catch. In baseball, replay was not meant to call a runner out because he slid into second base, and then when he popped up, he came off the base for a millisecond.
Yeah.
That's not why we have replay, but that's what it's being used for. And that's the problem. It needs to be restrictions.
Because the technology is so good and the picture is so crystal clear that you can see that stuff. So yeah, you're right, Brad. But because that's what the game's evolved into, one, it's become frustrating because then you have to sit through replays over and over and over again. And then there's that off chance that they don't get it right, which has happened. Yeah. So either you have to come up with a more efficient way to do it, and you have to go all the way and do it for everything, or say forget it, no more replay. It's just gonna go back to the way it was, and you have to deal with it.
I will say it'd be pretty cool though.
Like Little League
strike, and it was if a pitcher threw a pitch and it was a strike, if all like the LED screens all over the stadium turned red. All the all turned green. I think it'd be pretty cool.
It's funny you said that, because I was thinking about that for like bases. Like say the bases are always lit up green, and as soon as the runner hits it or touches it, it changes color. So then you can visually see, hey, the ball's in the glove and the base is still green, or hey, but the first baseman's got their foot. So that's when you'd have to switch to like the softball double base. So the first baseman can put their foot on the base, and then the base runner can touch the light up base. Or I don't know. But I feel like there's something there with using light and visual cues. Huh?
I would love that.
Yeah, you'd have to have a double base everywhere. So that's why maybe you figure out a way where, like, okay, so the fielder puts their base on it and it changes color. So that's how you know the fielder's got their foot on it. And then if it changes color again, like if it goes from green to red when the fielder's got it, and then back to green when the runner hits it, then you know, like, hey, this is when they touch the base. or something like that. I don't know. It's something, but it's funny you
That's
say that because I was thinking about using light or color as a way to
Yeah,
help
because that's
assist
fast.
with calls.
Change is light, it's the
Mhm.
fastest way. Well,
Yeah,
so we got
light's
way.
the like.
So we got
Go ahead.
really. All right, let's just sum it up. We got really far away from the whole cheating scandal, but I'm glad we
that
evolved
was-
to something
that- yeah,
else.
I
Well, this
like
is all
that.
good stuff to talk about because it's all
I
kind of
think
tied
that's
together in
solid.
some form.
I think it's been almost an hour now, so I think this is a good, solid first merging episode here. And we had a lot to talk about today.
Before we do that, can I just say one thing that I really wanted to mention
Yeah,
tonight?
we'll get some final thoughts.
Absolutely, dude.
And it has to do with the cheating, huh?
We might hang up on you, but go ahead.
I'm saying if you're looking for a way to punish the teams equally that have been found to cheat, like the Astros, who have benefited by winning a World Series, is I think, and Brad, we talked about this yesterday and I think the day before. I think you got to strip the World Series. I don't think you give it to the opposing team. I think
No.
you just say nobody won the World Series that year.
No.
That way, all the players that were involved, whether or not they were a pitcher or a fielder, because like we said, if you're in the clubhouse, you have to have some idea of what's going on. You were aware of it and you didn't do anything about it to stop it. You take the rings away, you take the World Series away, and you just say 2017 and 2018 were nobody won. That way, because the Dodgers are the team that got screwed over the most out of both of these because they lost to both of those teams. The Yankees lost to both of those teams. So, you can't assume the Yankees are going to beat the Dodgers in the World Series, and you can't assume that if the Astros didn't cheat, the Dodgers would win. But it definitely gave them an advantage, and that's unfair. So you have to take away the thing that they won. Then that way everybody's punished equally. You can't say, oh, well, they were caught cheating that year, so there's an asterisk, and I still get my ring. That doesn't mean that means nothing. I mean, you're pretty much just saying, it wasn't that big of a deal. Take away the championship, take away the World Series rings, take away Altuve's MVP award. Don't give it to Judge. Just say nobody won it that year, and there you have it.
If that was me,
even
they would have to pray that ring off my dead hand.
Let's say, all right.
I would never give that ring up.
Would you agree or not?
No, I do, but the thing is, like with the rings and stuff, just keep them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, in a way, there's probably 50-50 on you didn't know about you knew. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just take away the championship, take away the MVP, take away all that stuff, but let them keep
take down the banners in the stadium.
Oh, yeah,
that's
absolutely,
the big one.
yeah.
The banners in the stadium and the trophy, that's got to go back.
Or Judge gets the MVP, it's just asterisk. Nothing happened that year. Scanned, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they do that.
Put a black label over it, and then that's everyone knows that's the year of shame.
Yeah, well, it's just so like when Reggie Bush got caught, they made him give him back his trophy. I was like, man, I don't know if I do that.
But do you think Reggie Bush learned his lesson?
Does he care? You know,
I'm just saying you take away, because everybody, think about it, all these big league ball players, what do they usually play for? They play for that World Series ring. They play for that, and most of the time, how many players haven't made it into the Hall of Fame because they haven't won a World Series? Don Mattingly's a big one, other than the fact that he was injured half of his career. But that's a big deal. So you take that ring away, you take that championship away, that removes a layer of accomplishment from their resume. Verlander, exactly.
So, my friend was, I agree. You strip the World Series title.
Both of them. You strip Red Sox too.
They can. Well, we'll see what their investigation.
Yeah.
I think,
see what that reveals first.
You take the trophy away, you take the banners down. No one can be said I'm 2017 World Series champion, but rings. Let them keep the rings. They want to tell people they're champion. Let them. That's
they
on
could
them.
sell them.
That's on. Yeah, or sell.
It's like UCF in Alabama.
Yeah. Listen, the diamonds are gone. The rings are gone. That's okay with me. Just take away the trophy from the organization, take the banners down, and just take it off the record books. Like you said, just have no World Series champion, have no AL MVP, and I think everyone's equally punished.
Who did
Verlander didn't win Cy Young.
Yeah, I was about to say, who won Cy Young that year?
I don't think it was Verlander.
Was it Dallas Keuchel or whatever? No.
No.
I have to look it up. I think No,
Was he
Verlander
with the
didn't
Red
because that
Sox?
was the year he was traded. He was traded
Right.
halfway through the season.
If Verlander did win the Cy Young, most of the season was in Detroit anyway. And he was not doing good. So that wasn't.
No, he was having a bad year.
Kid from the
Keep
Porcello?
talking. I'm gonna look it
Was
up.
that Porcello's year?
Might have been. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
The guy who like,
Rick Porcello.
yeah, he like does
everyone
nothing
says
else.
everyone says he's the worst Cy Young award winner.
Yeah.
By the way, Porcello was on the Red Sox. They supposedly cheated. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that you take his Cy Young. Well, no, Cora wasn't there yet.
Oh, Kluber. Okay, Corey Kluber from the Indians. Okay.
Another guy I have no
So
idea.
Rick Porcello was before that.
Yeah. Okay. So you can't take that. Just.
Mhm.
They gotta do something, and it's gonna be bad. It's gonna suck no matter what. I mean, it's just they gotta, and it's a tough decision to make, but it's gotta be done because if you're gonna, in a way, it's like you take them their Hall of Fame eligibility away. Because if you're gonna stand tall on this steroid shit, you've got to stand tall on this because. And the thing is like, do you make? And they'll never do it, but they should. Like the steroid era. Here were the great players in the steroid era, because it's some of the best players ever. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but they'll probably never do that.
And if they're going to make such a big deal, yeah, I'm with you, Tino. If they're going to make such a big deal about the steroid era tarnishing the reputation of Major League Baseball, but they don't do it with this, then something's not right here.
Yeah, something ain't right. I don't know. I just don't.
If they're going to make such a big deal about Pete Rose gambling on baseball and banning him for life, but only suspending these managers and these players.
Well, let's be fair. Pete Rose is banned for life because he refuses to admit it that he did it, and everyone knows he did it.
Yeah,
that is why he's banned. He's not banned for life because of what he did. It's because of how he's acting.
Okay, fair enough. So then let me paraphrase. Let me edit my statement. Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Great guy.
If you're gonna ban that guy for life, which he's dead now, but if you're gonna ban him for life for being a member of the Black Sox, even though his stats show otherwise that he clearly did not throw the 1919 World Series, and you're gonna ban him by association, and you're not gonna uphold that precedent that was established 100 years ago for this, and that's clearly cheating. You're cheating. To gain a monetary, you're betting against your team for losing the World Series by not trying. I mean, that's clearly a form of cheating.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No.
And now you're using technology to give yourself an advantage when it was explicitly said by the commissioner that that's illegal, and you still did it. That's cheating. And you have to say, well, if you establish this precedent and you're not going to uphold it, then I can't take you serious. So anyways, I didn't mean for that to go on a 5-minute tangent.
Though, was like the MLB, they thought it was the off season. It ain't. You know what I'm saying?
Baseball season never ends.
But it's just going to be a nightmare for them.
I think we can agree it's really big history. It's probably something that's going to be the biggest history moments in the sport we get to live through.
Yeah.
What do you see as doing?
Because I mean, think about all the things that affects. It doesn't just affect the Astros, who benefited from this. It affects all the teams that they played, the teams that they beat in the playoffs. It affects the pitchers that got lit up for having their signs stolen illegally. Yeah. They have these bloated ERAs now. Some people lost their jobs because they had one bad outing against the Astros. It's affected all these players. And now, even though AJ, go ahead.
Trevor Bauer was saying, think about all the guys that didn't get an opportunity to be called up to the minors or got out to the minors and got sent down. Like the Astros, maybe the guys in the minors and the Astros never got that opportunity because someone involved in cheating. And think about opposing teams, guys like you said, get sent down because they got blasted by the Astros.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, you have the Astros general manager who is claiming that he had no idea, which I don't know, I 100% believe that. But if that's the case, and you have AJ Hinch who reportedly destroyed 2 of the monitors that they were using to keep them from doing this, even though he never explicitly said stop doing this, you have 2 guys that have now lost their job because the players developed the system. And they're the ones held accountable, but the players who did it are now benefiting because they still have their World Series. They're still making millions of dollars. Altuve got a huge extension after he won the MVP in 2017. Springer just got his big contract. All these players are going to get all this money for doing this when they're the ones who really should be punished. Anyway, that's my soapbox. That's where I'll leave it. I know I went
It's
over.
gonna be a downward for all of them. Everyone's gonna hit the shit.
And this is gonna look so bad for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and just like you said, hopefully it's just as much as you want to keep it to those two teams, like you really hope it is just those two teams. Like I get it, it's part of baseball to steal signs, like you were saying, but it's like, man, oh man, imagine if it was 20 or so teams. It's like, what do? Do you make them all go lifetime? That's the thing. Is like,
well, it'll never get that big.
But you never know.
They're not going to let it.
It's just there could be 10 plus.
It could
people.
Be every team for all we know.
Yeah, there could be 10 plus people banned for life in 1 year. That's insane.
That's huge.
Some of them in their prime. Altuve's in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Springer, Correa, Bregman, all these guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sorry to take. Yeah, go for it.
So we're going to talk about a sport that never cheats, and that.
How did you say that with a straight face?
I know.
So what do you want to end this now? You want to keep going, or what do you want to do?
I thought you wanted to talk football too.
You know, I don't know. Greg, you stay on.
You want to stay on?
Yeah. Well, why don't I stop the recording and start it back up again? So then.
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah.
2 different episodes.
Then they're split apart. So with that being said, for those of you watching, my name is Greg Andriano. You can find me on Twitter at GregAndriano05. I'm part of Yankee Chatter, which Bradford helps me out with. Actually, it's a team effort, so we do it togetger. That sounded weird. Just pretend I didn't say that. And then those guys up there.
He just got his toes. He can't do it.
Too much pressure, man.
I know, right?
No, but seriously, Brad and Tino are up there, and they represent bigger and broader sports.
That's right.
We're trying to get all of us out there. We're trying to have a team effort to get everybody noticed because what we love is sports. I mean, that's our, I hate to say it because, we always said like someday we'll grow up, and we have, but we still love sports. We just don't cry when teams lose.
So find Yankee Chatter on pretty much everything.
Everything, yep.
And then you can find Bigger and Better shows on YouTube, which is our main source. And then you can also follow
us on Instagram, Bigger and Better Sports, one word.
Instagram, Twitter, I'm Bradder Chatter 1, and
I'm Big Tuna BBS.
Not BBW.
And
BBS.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, and Brad as well. Speaking on behalf of Yankee Chatter. Hopefully we get some new followers and some people that like what we're saying and talking about. Join on the conversation with us on Yankee Chatter. We're always open to having a good, well thought out dialogue. So good stuff.
We plan on doing some live shows sooner or later.
Yeah, we'll get that all figured out. But thanks for tuning in, and check us out on the next show that we're about to record. So have a good night, guys.